All right, hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. And so there's a little bit different show today, and I have one of our clients on who's an author that I thought had a really interesting take on some family issues with some children's books. So I have Miss Ms. Monica Allison on the show. Monica, let me tell you about her first. So Monica is an early childhood educator with more than 20 years in the field, and she is passionate, to say the least, about adult child engagement. Okay, and so her books really highlight that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I think you, as a family, reading to your kids is important. Reading to them early is important, and today we're going to talk about why. Monica, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Thanks for inviting.
My pleasure. So tell them what I didn't tell them. So,
I start with my journey into becoming an author um, and teacher, to be honest with you. So, as a child, I was the one that played school, and so I was always the teacher. And there were 17 steps from to the top of my mom's platform to get into the house.
mhm.
And so each step that you were able to go up, different grades. So we started at kindergarten and ended up at college. And then we, used to have these stupid little ceremonies and things like that because you graduate. Um, Fast forward, um, in my teenage years,
Mhm.
I was the block babysitter.
Okay.
And so I always had somebody's kid. And my dad used to fuss all the time. He called me Easter seals. And he was like, "Oh, I turn around, you're bringing home a stray."
That's funny.
So, as I grew up and began working, I started in the insurance industry. And actually, I started working in the insurance industry because I had telemarketing behind me. I got
Okay.
through college, and the company I started working for dealt with just seniors. And in my mind, okay, I'm gonna work in this industry and I'm gonna help older people find the right insurance, and was stuck in the insurance industry for 20 years.
Mhm. Okay.
And then finally, my mom started a daycare,
Mhm.
and still working in the insurance industry at that point, but she got overwhelmed and she started doing day as well as a cyber center for children that were going to cyber school whose parents also needed to work, and there was really no venue for that at that time.
Okay.
So we're talking the early 90s. I quit my job and started working for the daycare, and then transitioned over into the cyber education space while she worked the daycare. And that kind of brought me to my mentor, who was our TA, our technical person for the daycare.
Mhm.
And she was just like, "You have so much experience behind you, you need to write books." Well, as a young person, I was always writing. So I was the child when you screwed up, we didn't say sorry.
Mhm.
So that wasn't accepted. But I always felt like, well, there was a reason behind what I did. So I was the kid that always wrote their parent letters
Mhm.
to
Okay.
explain where I was coming from. So looking back, you look at all the writing that I've done. That is one of my favorite classes as well, was creative writing.
Okay.
Um, Writing letters to parents, and
Mhm.
then love of children, you know, made sense to start writing books.
Okay. So cool. So let's get into and you have some interesting philosophies on why, but the books are name the books first of all, and then we can maybe get into the last one, grandparents are special, or all of them if you want, depending on what you want to talk about today. But name them what the objective of they are in your mind, and then let's dig into it a little bit.
Okay. So my first book is called The Ice Cream Man is Coming. And it was based on the book, if you guys read children books, Brown Bear, Brown Bear, Brown Bear, what do you see?
Okay.
And so in my mind, children in Philadelphia don't see brown bears, right? But they see the ice cream man.
Okay.
And so it was built on the premise of the ice cream man going to different areas and asking young children what do they actually see. And then the pictures show a particular thing. For example, a mailman. That's something that a child can identify. And then the word mailman is under the picture of the mailman.
Mm-hmm.
So the premise behind it was, as young children, because the book is repetitive, they're able to read, on my street I see, and then they can look at the picture and say a mailman.
Okay.
But as they get older, they're able to identify the individual letters. And as they scaffold from that, they're able to understand that those letters become mailman.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And this let's go to all three, then we'll go back. So with the second one is
The second one is Our Family is Different. And so with Our Family is Different, that actually came during the pandemic. And one of our families that I was dealing with was having real issues because they adopted children of a different. And so the father continuously got stopped by the police and asked whose children are these.
mm,
And, in our minds, are like, well, our family looks a little different than everybody else's. But during the pandemic and dealing with a lot of immigrant families, I recognized that there are a lot of children that have circumstances that are not represented.
mm-hmm.
And so in the book, we have underrepresented families, families that have migrated illegally, families that have to go visit parents in incarcerated, families that are in the shelter system. And so I just wanted our families to be able to feel like, or our children is to be able to feel like they were represented in a book of their age group,
Right.
but also to build tolerance for when those children school, because these are some of the children they're going to encounter.
Okay. And what are the ages of that you're give us a third one, and then what are the ages that you're kind of writing to, or for them to read, or for the parents to read to them, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So the ice cream is coming. I gear towards children 0 to 3,
Okay.
because that's where letter recognition and word recognition start to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Our Family is Different is kind of 2 to 5, because it opens those children up to some subject matter that might take a little more age to understand. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted them to get to read Our Family Different before they went to school. So it would end, say, around age 5 or 6. And that way they're able to, identify bullying, start to take up for these kids, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, because they were introduced to that family prior to going to school. And then Grandparents Are Special really did, it came from having a really special relationship with my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that grandchildren today have those same relationships, that deep seated, I'm going to die with your secrets, grandmother.
Okay.
And so Grandparents Are Special is really kind of my story in growing up and thinking backwards about how many things we learned from the elders in our families, and how it really does shape us. We have some things in our DNA, but a lot of we look back and we're like, well, why are my eyes looking like that? Well, why do I say so and so and so and so? And a lot of times it's because who we were around as young people, and we just kind of take on those attributes. And that is geared to children five,
Okay, you broke up a little bit. Five to what?
5 to 8.
5 to 8. Now, let's talk about this. So because we've had these conversations offline, and I um about the ages, the problem with young kids not reading and the problems that causes if you don't get it started early. I think that's what I want, kids with parents here or that are listeners with young kids, the importance of this aspect of it as per your experience. Tell me a little about that. I want to dig into that a little bit.
Okay. So our children in underserved communities have a really wide word gap between us and affluent children.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is due to the fact that they are not read, their vocabulary is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So once they get to, say, third grade and they start taking those standardized tests, our children can't recognize that a house is the same as a cabin. So if the question is, something about a cabin in the woods, our kids can't relate to that
Hmm.
because they're not taught synonyms. And so one of the things that I'm really passionate about is trying to get children or parents to read to children on a consistent basis, but also take the simple words you see and expand upon those words. Give those kids synonyms to go with those words. That not only expands their vocabulary, but it also increases the ability to pass or at least start to read on grade level.
Okay. So now this is with, let's not even saying uh non-affluent kids. I'm talking about kids, okay? Because first of all, I don't associate people that look like you and I with poverty. So I'm not even going to put that out there. All right, because that's a temporary condition.
Right.
Part of which reading will solve. Okay, and but I think they have to. I think our kids are doing well in school, and one just graduated, but they caught the reading bug early, and I think that's what propelled them. And then they were in a group. This is why the power of association is so strong, where even like my kids were in the reading Olympics, right? So they had to read a certain amount of books, and I didn't see a lot of black or brown kids in that thing. I went to it, and it was great when it was live. I didn't like it as much with COVID, but it was exciting. I mean, they're in this thing and they're
Right.
answering questions, and they'd read all these books to get ready. And and then they were in this group where they were reading all these Harry Potters and the Lightning Thief and all these series of book that they were all, look what they call fandoms, where they're all reading all this stuff. So my kids would knock out a 900-page Harry Potter book in like 3 days. I mean, it was crazy. I can't get to read nothing now as 22-year-olds, but they're getting back into it. But you got to start it. But that is what helped propel them into the top classes, into the A
Mm-hmm.
classes. But catching them early with that love of reading. That's really what I want to do. Does the book help with that? Like, so I know that's your belief. Does the reading to them, um because sometimes I wonder if the parents can explain it. Because it's like, listen, I work with the parents, as my financial
Mm-hmm.
planning clients, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to read a damn book. But that an 85-page book I had them read. So that's like, all right, here's Audible. I'll let them cheap. You can get it on Audible.
Right.
And which I hate, but it's like, okay. And I don't hate it because I use Audible a lot, put it on 1.5 speed, and I like biographies on Audible, so I'm going through that kind of stuff because I like learning about people's lives. But I think the power is instilling that love of reading, and
Mm-hmm.
then the world opens up for them. But what is so we talked about this. What is the result of them not reading early?
So one of the results is that they are not proficient at reading on their grade level.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that feel like is really important for the children of this generation is that because they are using a lot of technology and not books, they are not grasping the concept of the written word.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so it's really difficult for them to transition. They've had 5 years, let's say, at home with mom and her iPad or her iPhone, and transition into a classroom where that may not be available to them. They can't make the connection.
Wow. Interesting. Never thought about that. Yeah, depending where the school is. I mean, because even what they found during COVID, they are, all right, we'll just do online stuff, but then you're making a bunch of presumptions. A, they have a computer. B, they have a strong internet
Mhm.
connection. And there's a lot of stuff that didn't exist, and they just realized, okay, well, we got to get them some Chromebooks or something so they can do this because they may not have or an iPad, but and so you got to. There's a lot of assumptions made,
Right.
and so there's a technology gap, but there ain't no gap with books. I mean, in Philly, we're both in Philly. They closed up, they just open a bunch of libraries, whereas that should be the center where you have programs. I think they're just not recruiting enough to do it. There's some open, but that could be a place to do that. But one of the things that I encourage, Monica, is my clients and their kids, because I'll give them some kids like financial books, right, to read also. But you
Mhm.
got to read and um you need to have a library, right? Like you should be prominent. Like when I used to go do house visits, and this is a thing because people would put their library like when people enter, because you could tell a lot by the person by what they were reading or not
Mhm.
reading, right? And so I would look at that. I look at their bookshelf, and if I would see stuff like Think and Grow Rich or How to Win Friends, Influence People, or Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, okay, this is my kind of person, you
That's
know.
if they have a library.
Right?
And
They don't.
that's
They
also, yeah, that's part of the issue too. So children don't have a they have a library of video games,
right.
but they don't have a library of books.
Right. And that's what I do. I give them a bookshelf, and then we're going to get them children's books, and all of my kids have like a little shelf of books, even my 12-year-old, right? And so
Mhm.
that she's 12 now as we record this, but for a while I try to encourage them to do that. And so hint hint, that's kind of the thing. Going back to this is a financial show, Jim Rohn says um all rich people have libraries.
Right.
Okay. So I tell people success leaves clues, you know, middle class and poor people have flat screens, TVs, and they're wasting a lot of time and money having every cable channel, and watching TV and letting that babysit them instead of instilling a love of books.
Right.
Um, so I feel like I'm putting words in your mouth. So say that, because we talk about this offline. This is like a thing, that
Yes,
so
it is.
this is the thing. I have lots of opinions about a lot of stuff, right? And so it's for illiteracy, just period. And
Right.
then, my business is I'm a financial educator, so financial illiteracy, which most people suffer from. But if you don't like reading, you have to be able to read and understand the words first, and then because somebody said to me, and this is I kind of really took this to heart. Y'all don't take this the wrong way, but somebody said if you want to hide something from a black man, where do you
Put
put it?
it in the book.
Put it in a book. Not to be stereotypical, right? But we're gonna go there today, right? And so I heard that and I was like, oh, not me, because I'll tell people, look, people died so your behind can read. So
Absolutely.
stop wasting, that or to vote or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And read the stuff before you just vote for anybody. That's another story. I don't want to go there. But
Mhm.
for right now. So Monica, tell us, let's talk about the last one. So because I want to talk about who should have this. What is the person? So I really like the grandparents are special because a lot of times they don't. Your reason for it was in general people weren't having connections with their grandparents? What was the go? Let's go into that a little bit more.
Right. So a lot of times, a friend actually said, "Well, Miss Monica, your that type of relationship died with your grandmother, right?" Because I feel like even with my children, I don't have the same relationship as I did with my grandmother. And I say all the time that she died with some of my secrets. People just we had such a good relationship and rapport that I could tell her anything. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like she was shocked or that she would chastise me.
Mm-hmm.
Grandparents, I feel honestly, grandparents are a safe space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to necessarily, and I say this in the book, they're not going to necessarily comment on what you said or did. What they're going to do is actively listen and hopefully give you some advice that you can take pieces of, all of, and move forward.
Right.
Whereas a lot of times parents are reactionary. If
Mm-hmm.
you tell a parent something, they're reacting to that particular situation. They could care less what led up to that situation.
Right.
And they're reacting to, well, what are the consequences of this decision that you have made? And they're not asking you from your perspective. They're at, well, what's the neighbor going to think? Well, what's so and so going to think? Well,
Mm-hmm.
why would you do so and so and so and so? I taught you better.
Mm-hmm.
Where you don't get from a grandparent.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. I like that. What final thoughts do you want them to leave them with as they just on about this topic, and then I want you to tell them how to get your books, or you know well, I'll say this after you say that, because I'm gonna tell them where they can, what they should be doing. If they don't buy them for themselves, you can buy them. We've donated stuff to daycares our kids were in, for their library, right? Or
Right.
for the elementary school in your neighborhood's library. If you like it, that you want them to have it, you can buy 5 copies and donate it.
Yeah. So we actually, I'm doing a lot in that arena as well.
Mm-hmm.
The place that I actually work for, Parent Child Plus, we provide free books and toys to families that have children between 16 months and 4, so that they can start to build those libraries at a
Mm-hmm.
younger age and be able to appreciate books and the written word. And so, with my book, so Grandparents are Special, it's
Mm-hmm.
like this in the front. And so I've been redoing read alouds
Mm-hmm.
to
Okay.
larger groups and then donating books to maybe the first 10 or 12 kids that really sit down and read the book with me, or any of the 3 books actually,
Okay.
with me. And that starts to get their library moving. Definitely talking about the libraries in the city and all of the things that it has to offer our children, including after programs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a little difficult here in West Philly because several of our libraries are closed due to rebuild. And so, unfortunately, you have to go a little further out to get to a library right now. But once those libraries are rehabbed, you can get a library card for your child or your grandchild and start to build that love of reading. Let them go to the children's section and pick books that they like. One of the issues I feel like we have is that when children start kindergarten, right? Or first grade, not necessarily kindergarten, but they're thrown into this educational space where they have to read. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't already have a love of reading, they already don't have a foundation for reading,
Mm-hmm.
they don't, they're like, you know, and that's how we get those reluctant readers by third grade, because they're frustrated because they actually can't read or can't comprehend, or a combination of the two. Neither is good, right?
and they never catch up. Same
Exactly.
thing with math. They can't catch up. You've got to you can't just throw them in private school. They're still not going to catch up. Okay.
Exactly.
And that's what I mean. You got like till they're about 3 to 6 before their
Mhm.
brain is kind of molded and they're going to. I heard that somewhere, so don't take me on because I'm not a psychologist, but you got to catch them early because then it's kind of set. I mean, you can do stuff, but you know, you kind of got to instill certain stuff. It's hard work. I mean, parenting is really, really important.
Mhm. And you can definitely, I mean, and you can attest to this. You have different children or multiple children, and they all learn differently.
Yep.
And so, with our children as parents, we need the time, as was stated in the Grandparents Are Special book, to figure out what is going to intrigue that child. And it may not be, well, let me just say this: a lot of children run into issues with reading because it's a mandated read, right?
Hmm.
So I might, as a teacher, say you have to read Our Family is Different, and that child could care less whether or not the family is different. But
Hmm.
there's no alternative to it. Whereas if you, as a parent or caregiver, are offering books to children, allow them to pick out something they are interested in
Right.
and use that as our intro to helping them with their vocabulary, with their comprehension, and with their love of books. So understand that when they go to school, they have to read X, Y, and Z. But when they come home, we're going to sit down, we're going to be having dinner, we're going to read a book that I'm really excited to get, like you were saying earlier, the Harry
Hmm.
Potter book. That's something that kids were interested in for a time being. She has a series called Ichabod. If you like her genre of writing, those are things that you can purchase for your child or even library and get for your child. But let them pick out those books that they feel excited about. And that's also them with their creativity moving forward and creating some goals for themselves. So, like you were mentioning about the challenges, our schools used to have the 100 book challenge.
Hmm.
I have no idea where that went. At least they were mandated to read this 100 books,
Right.
but they could choose it on their own and still get the reward at the end of it. And it helps confidence as well. If you've ever seen a child 3 years old, even though they can't read the words themselves, and I'll use Brown as an example, they think they're reading Brown Bear, right?
Hmm.
Because it's so repetitive that they've memorized the story.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so they'll go through the pages. They know where the purple horse is. So they'll go to the page and they'll read that page.
Right.
Increases their confidence. And now they're like, oh, I want to read so and so and so and so. Oh,
Right.
can you get me so and so? Graphic novel, another good example for young people because they might like the pictures as they go through the book. Get them that daggone graphic novel,
Right.
them begin to, get that love of reading. But it also helps with that parent child interaction,
Right.
which, where I really want the onus to be, not just on the parent, not just on the child, but that combination between those two generations, telling them stories, not
Hmm.
just reading them stories.
Right.
Start to read a story to the child. Let them stop reading in the middle and let them come up with the middle to the end.
Huh. Okay.
Those are the ways that you can kind of increase that parent child interaction, but at the same time you're increasing their vocabulary, you're increasing their creativity, you're increasing their confidence, and you're also increasing their love of reading.
I like it. Monica, tell them how where they can find uh your books.
So all three of my books can be found at www.moniesplace.com. That's M as in Mary, O as in Oscar, N as in Nancy, I as in Isaac, E as in Edward, S as in Sam, place, all one word, .com.
Okay, guys, listen. So listen. I think this is a different episode for us, but I think it's important, and I want you to go buy the book. Okay, holidays are coming up. Give the book to somebody with kids, one of your cousins or nieces or nephews. Donate to, pick a school in the city that needs some support. My wife would adopt a school and donate food, not food, school supplies, and books and stuff to help build their libraries up. So these are things, ways. I hate when people say you got to give back, but you can give, because this is a pet peeve. Like, you ain't taking things, so you don't have to get nothing back, but you can give. Okay, and don't guilt me into be. I hate people trying to guilt me in the that's like a pet peeve, right? But just give. Okay. And but anyway, so that's we might delete that
Yeah,
part,
and
but
Halloween is coming up, Curtis. And so one of the things that I do for Halloween is I get and this might be an idea for because with our climate here in Philadelphia, it's difficult for children to go door to door trick or treating.
mm-hmm,
So a lot of places have these trunk or treats. So
mm-hmm.
what I do is get gallon Ziploc bags, and in that gallon Ziploc are crayons, construction paper, pencils, and a book.
Huh,
Maybe some stickers, something you find at the dollar store. And this is what you're getting. And of course, a few pieces of candy because you can't have Halloween without candy,
that's
right?
right. uh,
But it's
I'll
a
keep it
gift
interesting.
for
Okay, what's the
children.
candy? Okay, oh, I got a book here. What's that? But let me get to the candy first.
Yep.
So, Lifesavers or gummy bears or Hershey Kisses, if you want me to look at it, or just little chocolate bars. So, 'cause I have a serious sweet tooth. Gummy bear, and all things that are bad for me, but all things in moderation. That's it.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's good. Listen, so we're gonna put these in the show notes, guys. I thank you for listening. If you like this episode, leave us a comment. Please share it to somebody you think that could benefit from this. Monica, thanks again for coming on the Practical Wealth Show.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right.